Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, all of us, all of you watching us online, and well, the ones that are here and incarnated, the ones that are not incarnated, but all of us are here today in this snowy day, snowy weekend here in Toronto, and we're going to be talking about blessed are the afflicted. So Marcio is going to bring to us a lot of discussions and interesting ideas behind who are the afflicted ones. Are we part of that? What what does that mean? Like being afflicted, right? So putting in context such an enormous amount of information that's contained in that passage, right? So as usual, as we do every Sunday, we're gonna read a passage, and Raquel's gonna help us do that. And then right after that, we're gonna have our initial prayer, and then Marcio is gonna facilitate the lecture today. And I hope you guys all enjoy and have questions and take a lot of that to you today, and maybe start this process of transformation and understanding what being afflicted, blessed or afflicted means. Thank you all. So Raquel, please.
Good morning. So we're going to read a passage from the book Living Spring. Accept the correction. It is true that no discipline seems pleasant at a time. It seems painful. Later on, however, it produces the peaceable fruit of righteousness for those who have been trained by it. Paul. The soil is lacerated and torn under the pressure of the plow. However, it is not long until beautiful flowers and delicious fruits burst forth from its strengthened furrows. When pruned, the tree loses a lot of sap, becoming undernourished and ugly. However, in just a few weeks, it acquires new robustness, manifesting beauty and abundance. The humble water leaves the comfort of the spring, undergoes the demand of movement, reaches the great river, and then shares in the great grandeurs of the sea. What occurs in the simple sphere of nature also occurs in the complex realm of the soul. A correction is always hard, unpleasant, and bitter. But for those who accept its instructions, it always results in the blessed fruit of experience, knowledge, understanding, and righteousness. The soil, the tree, and the water must bear correction because they have no choice in the matter. But the human being, the champion of intelligence on the planet, is free to accept it and harbor it in his or her heart. Hence, the problem of personal happiness will never be resolved by avoiding the reparative process. Heavenly correction is obvious in every corner of the world. However, very few accept its blessing, because most of the time such a gift does not come wrapped in ermine, and when raised to the lips, it does not taste like candy. It is clothed in thorns and mixed with gall under the guise of a curative and salutary medicine. Therefore, do not waste your precious opportunity for improvement. Toil and struggle, pain and obstacles are means of purification that we should make use of.
So let us all at this moment elevate our thoughts, our minds, to our Master Jesus, to our Father, Mother, God, the Creator. Let us thank for the opportunity of being here, surrounded by every single detail of the creation, living this moment under the blessing of true love that comes directly from above, and touches each one of us at this moment. Let us all bathe in this beautiful, bright energy that surrounds every single one of us. Connect through it. Incorporate it into our minds and our bodies. And open our ears of the body and our ears of the spirit to the message that we're going to hear today. May we also think about all those who are going through the suffering of the trial and expiations of the planet. Think about them too. Think about everyone. Thank you, God, for this opportunity. And God bless all of us. All right, Marcio.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm very excited here today. Oh, you are excited. All right, so welcome everyone. I'm very thankful to be here today talking about Blessed the Afflicted, because who never thought about reading this, who are those afflicted people, right? And why they're blessed? Why suffering is a blessing, right? So how come all these two things can be together? That was one thing that every time that I read that, I had to put in my mind, okay, what exactly is being a blessed, afflicted person, right? And so that's what I will try to answer today, going through what we have on the Spirit's books, right? Especially the Gospel according to Spiritism. There is an entire chapter, and if you look there, it's the biggest chapter in the book, and also the chapter with, of course, because it's the biggest, where we have the most of the spiritual communications in the Gospel according to Spiritism. You know, if you remember the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a piece. Usually the beginning is some explanation from Kardec, and then there is the spiritual teachings. That's how we call it, right? And there is a bunch of lessons that come from the spirits there. So the first question that I try to answer here is, who are the afflicted ones, right? Who are these afflicted people that is blessed? And we can easily say that everyone in planet Earth is afflicted. You know, everyone going through this incarnation is an afflicted person. You know, it doesn't mean that it is not happy, right? We need to be careful there, because it's not because we are going through difficult situations, from things that we consider difficult, doesn't mean that we cannot be happy and deserve. Okay, so we're gonna talk a lot about that, but I want to make sure that everybody gets this point. That is, no, it's not about being happy or not being happy. Okay, and then we understand better as we go through this lecture today. So everyone, right? Don't think that because someone is rich and the other one is poor, the poor is suffering and the rich person is not, or someone that is sick versus someone that is health, but both going through difficult situations. Or people like us that we're here under the snow, and other people there in the beach under the sun, right? We are both being afflicted. And so there's not a bigger or smaller affliction, right? Each one of us is going through what we need to go through, and that affliction, that suffering, is unique to each one of us, right? So there's no one that is suffering more or suffering less, right? There's no one that is more reasons to be suffering versus someone else that is not suffering. You know, we are all suffering, and it's easy to explain because we are in the world of trials and expiations, right? What that means. We are in the Gospel according to Spirit, chapter 3. There is the item number 13. It tells us that the Spirit tells us that we live in a world of trials and expiation. When Kardec described the the different planets that we have in the universe that God created. They tell the different levels of countries, and from a primitive country to a happy planet, and the Spirit expressed that we are going through. We are in a world of trials and expiations, right? But what are trials and expiations? Why? What are these things that we are going through here, right? So trial is everything that we're being tested to learn something. So if you're going to school and you're studying, you're learning, right? You're in university, whatever. You're there studying and learning, and you need to go to a test to make sure that you learn everything that you to test if you learn everything that you're studying, right? So you go to that test. So you're putting in situations. So trials are those situations that we are going through to make sure that we are getting to the closer to the perfection that God is expecting us from. And then we have the expiations. The expiations is something that we need to go through to raise wrongdoings and purify our souls. So it's like if you spend an entire year not studying at all, you don't get prepared to the tests, and what will happen? You have to go through everything again. So you're expiating, you're going, because you're wrongdoing, not studying, not pay attention to the class, you have to go through that all again, right? So things that we go through in our lives, it could be both things. Every expiation is a trial, right? At the moment that we expiate, we are testing if we have learned how to do better, right? So we are fixing something that we did in the past, and we are if we do that right, if we correct our actions, then we can do something different, right? So if we live in a world of trial and expiation, we are all suffering here. We all need to go through trials. We all need to go through expiations. What we have done wrong, right? How do we know what I have done wrong? So we always need to remember and go back to the first things that we learn in Spiritism. The first thing that we learn in Spiritism is about reincarnation, right? We learn that we have multiple lives, and we are here to, I think everybody know this in Spiritism, that we are here to fix things that we haven't done in previous lives. But if we go even before that, and when we think about how we start, how we were created, because we are not there always. So God created our spirits, and when God created the spirits, in the question 115 of the Spirit's book, the Spirit answers the question from Kardec, saying we are all created simple and ignorant. It means that we are created in the moment, and we have very limited knowledge. We have no knowledge about all the laws, everything, and we are exposed to situations, right? And then it is with the time that we start to make our decisions. And I got another concept that the Spirit's book brings to us, that it's free will. So we are created simple, ignorant. We have the free will. That is that we, through our actions, making we start now. When we are created as a spirit, we have the freedom of thought. So we start to think, right? So, and when we have this freedom of thought, we have our freedom of actions. So we make our decisions. So we have our free will to make our decisions. If we don't have the free will, what will happen? We would be machines, right? We will not be human beings make our own decisions. We'll be just machines that have, like a car, or this computer that doesn't only do things that we ask them to do, right? So it's those actions, that free will is where we start to, unfortunately, make bad decisions, and we start going through the need to expiate things. So we did something in previous lives, and we need now to correct those things. And you may ask why we don't remember those things, right? And that's a blessing that we have in our lives, because sometimes it's very hard to deal with things that we did wrong in this life. Imagine remember everything that happens in previous lives, right? So that's another blessing that we have, that we can start fresh, right? Like when we're born as a baby again. We have the chance to learn. We have the chance to make new decisions and hear new people and others. Not new, because most of the time we incarnate with people around us that is that have been incarnated with us for a while. But we could say new people because they are also renewing themselves, right? Being growing as spirits as well. So we have this chance to start over and make the right decisions in this incarnation, or make different choices, right? Let's think about different choices instead of what's right, what's wrong, because what's right, what's wrong may vary according to the situation that we are, and not according to the laws of God, of course. If we compare, we also always have to take that in consideration. But the moment that we're living, and the knowledge that we have at that time, that could be the best option that we had. So try to make different decisions, right? So forgetting everything that happened in the past is a blessing for all of us. We need to always consider that and be thankful that we don't remember everything, because it will be very hard to deal with bad things that we did in previous life. And when we start, and when we have this new fresh life that we can start making this new decisions, it is a way for us to take out all the that past and thinking different with, because everything that we learned in previous life, we didn't forget. We may forget the situation, the people that what we did wrong or what other people did wrong to us, but we don't forget what we have learned. So we don't when we're born, we still have the same vices that we have. We still have our pride, our selfishness, etc. We also have the good things that we learn, right? We still have the we may, if you learn about how to forgive, we can be a person who will easily forgive others. If we learn in the previous lives how to be charitable, we're gonna be. So it's not that we forget those vices and virtues that will keep with us, right? That will help us to make our decisions in this life. What we forget is situations and earthly things that happen with us in previous lives, right? So we need to go through these afflictions, we need to go through these trials and these expiations, and then we can ask ourselves, okay, who define what would be those trials and expiations, right? Who define what I need to go through? And the thing is, in the question 258 on the Spirit's book, the Spirit answers us that question saying, the Spirit itself chooses the kinds of trials it will undergo. Its free will consisting in doing it. So, before blaming anyone else next time, remember this, because it's ourselves who is deciding what we are going through in this life, right? And it's not a plan that we have. Okay, we do a plan when we incarnate and everything needs to go exactly how it is. Otherwise, everything would be kind of planned, and really in things would happen no matter what, right? It's not like that. The plan is always changing every single second as we make decisions, right? So it's like, I don't know if you guys watch those hospital doctors programs in the TV. You see, yesterday we were watching one, and they make a decision to turn off the ventilator of the patient, and what happened is they thought that, okay, this patient will die, and it happened the opposite. So you need, and then the family need to make other decisions based on what happened at that time. So every time that we make a decision, something else happen, and another thing and other decision we need to make. So when we make our plan before we incarnate, we may have a beautiful plan that we're gonna do this, 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 and this, and then when we get here, we start to deviating a little bit in what we have planned, and that's okay. You know, that's totally fine. That's exactly what we're supposed to do here. So as much as we are doing the right decisions, the better for us. We're gonna achieve whatever we have planned for that. So again, let's think twice before we blame someone else about what we have going through, because at the end it's all because decisions we have made. And another thing that the Gospel according to Spirit's book bring to us is that it's not only about the past lives. You know, we spiritists, we also always think about, all right, is this happening because of I did something wrong in my past life, or I did something wrong in 2-3 incarnations with this person. And the reality, and one of the first things that this chapter brings to us is that it's not all about the past. It's also about what we're doing right now in this incarnation, right? So if we born without a leg or without an arm, yeah, that's because of previous incarnation. If we're born in this family instead of that family, yes, it's because of the previous incarnations. But there's a lot of things that happens in our lives that is because of the decisions that we make. So in the Gospel according to Spiritism, item number 4, it says, on searching for the source of earthly misfortunes, it will be realized that many are the natural consequence of the character and behavior of those who bear them. So the spirits are telling us that, and Kardec is telling us that the decisions that we make every day, as I was saying, and the behavior, the way that we are behaving here is what will help us to have a better or worse life, right? So, for example, if someone that is very proud and say, yes, I think this, and this, you know, I'm very sincere. I'm gonna say whatever I want, right? And the truth is that depending on the way that a person is saying, yeah, it's important to be sincere. But if you are sincere and in a nice way that is helping others, that's good. You know, you're gonna get that back. But if you're sincere, just saying things to other people that is not helping them, well, you may hear something else as well. You may hear things that you don't want to hear too. So it's all the way. It's all the what we have in the books from Spiritism and Allan Kardec and André Luiz. It's all about action and reaction, right? So if we take that in consideration, the action and reaction, whatever we're doing in our lives, the decisions that we make, the behavior that we are having, we're gonna get back, right? So we always need to look inside ourselves and question our conscience. If the things that I'm doing is the right things, and we have the entire chapter talking about being perfect, right? In the Gospel according to the Spirit, that's all about checking our conscience, what we are doing, what you're not doing right, comparing those things to God's laws that we have in the Spirit's book. That's what we should be doing all the time, to make sure, that we do not, we are doing the right decisions to make our future better, right? Because if we did something wrong and in this life we were suffering, if we do things right, what's gonna happen in the next life, right? We may not suffer that much. We still have a lot of things. Probably we still have a lot of things to expiate. A lot of things to try or to test ourselves if we have learned the lessons. But we are in the process that if we make the right decisions, we know that the next life will be better, right? And we can say that this life will be better. The moment that we start to rethinking the way that we are acting, rethink the way that we are thinking, right? Because sometimes we are not doing anything bad, but we are thinking, right? we are having bad thoughts, and those bad thoughts influence what is around us as well, right? So that is we as afflicted ones need to keep in mind that we can change our future. We can change our future life. We can change our current life, right? So the other piece of the process, the lecture that I prepared for today, and is also based on the gospel according to Spiritism, is why it's a blessing to be afflicted, right? Why should we consider this a good thing? And the question 132 on the Spirit book says that the God imposes incarnation for the purpose of leading spirits to perfections. So the first thing to keep in mind, and I'm not saying, guys, that this piece is easy, you know, considering affliction a blessing, it's not something easy, but the moment that we start to rethinking, we can get it day by day, and then we can transform ourselves. But so the first thing that the spirits tell us is that we have the incarnation to go to perfection. So that's going through these difficulties. It's a blessing because it's leading us to be closer to God, to be closer to Jesus, to be close to what we want to do, we want to be, right? I'm sure everybody here in this room want to become closer to Jesus, you know, be like Jesus, love as Jesus loved us, right? That's why we all are here. We look for consolation in Spiritism, right? So the first thing to consider is that this is I'm going through this difficult, and this is a good thing. So we know that it will not take forever, right? These things will not, these afflictions will not take forever. Especially, this is another thing that can help us to see these afflictions as something good. If we're born without a leg, yeah, we may consider that for the entire life, right? But those afflictions, if we think as a immortal spirit, right? This life is very short, considering everything that we already went through and everything that is ahead of us, right? So it can be considering a very long, and it will take forever if we consider just this life. If you just look now, yeah, it will hurt your entire life, right? But if you see this as a very small piece of your true life, your spiritual life, you're gonna see that, well, this is just a few seconds, you know, it will be okay. I will, if we understanding the life after death, you know, after our body death, our disincarnation, then we're gonna see that, you know, it's very short period. Still hurt. I'm not saying that it's not, but it helps us to take us out of that mood that, you know, oh my God, this is terrible, my life is terrible, everything is terrible, right? It can help us to manage better the suffering and going through life. Okay, so the quick question that we need to take on this piece is, how are we gonna manage it, right? How do I gonna live this life going through all the trials and expiations that I need to go through and still be happy, right? How can I still be happy going through all of that? And then again, on the chapter 5 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a message from the Spirit that talks about suffering well or badly. You know, it tells us that we have two choices. I can suffer well, going through my trials and my expiations, knowing that it's temporarily, knowing that it's for my perfection, and be happy with that. Or I can go badly and just complain about it every single second. And then we know, if we complain, what we are creating? We're creating a bad a low vibration around us. We are attracting those people. There's also spirits, incarnated spirit that is in the same mood and the same vibration, and the life will not be great. But if we suffer well, we can do it differently. And this message tells us a few things about how we can suffer well. And the first thing that they tell us is about courage. You know, it's we suffer well when we have the courage to transform ourselves, right? When we change our behaviors, when we change our actions, and as we start to making different decisions, think differently about life, you know, those that is really courage that we can transform ourselves. You know, when the moment that we start to one of the things there's for us as a spirit is still very difficult to admit our mistakes, you know, things that we did wrong in this life. Let's forget about the past life. Let's look to this life. What I have done wrong with this life? How can I fix that? How can I go? How difficult for some of us, and we can see very easily, right? In kids, how many times we say to a kid, go and say sorry to whoever, you know, your friend that you hit or whatever you did. You know how hard it is for them. You know, it's not because they are kids. It's because we are all spirits that we have. It's difficult for us as adult people as well, right? So it's because that's in us. It's part of us to have that courage to really change and do different. So that's the first thing that the Spirit brings to us. And with that courage, what the Spirit also tell us is to have faith. Faith in this sense, faith would means to be patient. You know, be patient and remember that there is something bigger. And we all know there is something bigger than what we are living here now, right? We all remember Jesus saying that his reign is not in this world, right? So there is something bigger than what we are going through in this life. So we need to trust that God has his design and what is the best for us, that we're not alone, you know. And with faith, I also like to think that we and not being alone, when we think about not being alone, it's not being alone because God is with us all the time. It's because we have people around us. They're there to help us, right? None of us incarnated here without those spirits that will help us to go through this life. You know, that could be a family member, could be a friend, you know, someone that you met in a moment of your life that we need to, and maybe that person is not in life anymore, but that moment it was important to have that person with you. So we all have that support. None of us, we are alone. And you know, you might think, oh, that's a spiritual, that my mentor, my whatever, you know, this family, friends that is disincarnated with us, yes, they are there with you as well. But don't forget that we it's part of one of the laws. It's the law of society, right? We live in a society. We live to be with other people. We're living in a society because we need to expiate things that we have done. So I could have done something very bad with Marco, and then in this life we have to go. Yeah, probably I did, right, Marco? So we need to be together in this life. But you know, to go through the expiation, Denise is there to help me, you know, or maybe helping Mark, you know, and we are putting together, so we don't need to go through everything alone. You know, we have friends and family that are there with us. You know, it's okay to share our agonies, our things that we are not working well for us, that we can get the help that we need from our friends, right? The other thing that the Spirit says that this may be hard, but it's be content, be happy. Be happy while you're going through that. And the Spirit says, be content when God sends you into battle. Yeah. And in the sequence, he said, do not despair or be angry. So what they're trying to say here is that it's not that we cannot cry if something sad happened, or you will not be sad that something bad happened. The problem is when we keep that mood and we don't go beyond that, and we don't really take the next step in getting out of that situation and say, okay, I need to go through this. All right, I'll go through this, but I will not be despaired, and I will not be angry with God, especially with God, right? It's not, nothing is God's fault. Everything is our own fault. Let's remember what you said in the beginning, right? It's because of our past life. It's because of decisions that we made in this life. It's not because God wants us to go through that. God, instead, He wants us to be very happy. But if we have anything that is make us suffer, let's say, okay, I need to go through it and be happy that I had the chance to go through this trial. I have the chance to go to expiate this and move on, right? And do the right things to get it. And we have you probably, all of you may remember someone that you met, or there is a lot of famous people there has physical disabilities, and they are still doing the best with their lives. They are still happy, right? So that was meant to be happy, to be content while you're going through the suffering, because as hard as it is, we know, again, it's temporary, and we can do something different about that. The other thing that is to help us to go through the suffering well is praying. Praying is another way to help us to keep our strength, to keep the courage, to keep our faith, and as we go through the suffering, right? And the Gospel according to Spirit, chapter 27, ask and you shall receive, it says, it would be useless to ask the Lord to shorten your trials, to give you joy and wealth. Instead, ask Him to grant you more precious possessions of patience, resignation, and faith. So what he's saying is that let's not pray and say, hey God, please take this suffering from my life, give my arm back so I can be happy. No, we need to go through trials. We need to go through expiations. God cannot take us out from that situation, right? But we can ask God, to give us strength. Say, hey God, I know that I need to go through it. Please give me the strength to go through it. Give me the intuition to make the right decisions. Give me the courage to do what I have to do to make my life better. So prayer is an amazing way to help us to connect again with God and have everything else that we said. So to be content, to be happy, to have faith, to have courage, to be patient, all of that faith pray can help us. So the moment that you see there is going through a difficult situation, stop a minute, do a pray, and then move on. And the prayer doesn't need to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 seconds. 10 seconds can help us to get out of that bad thoughts and put us back on track to what God expects us to do. Okay, so that's how to suffer well again. Another way to help us to go and suffer well. And the fifth thing that the spirits bring to us on suffering well is to persevere in our tasks, persevere in this life, keep going, because again, if it's not in this life, it will be in the next one. If you don't expiate something in this life, another one will come. Sooner or later, we're gonna need to deal with those things. It's like the credit card bill, right? You can postpone a little bit, but one day you have to pay for it, right? And so that's another thing that we need to keep in mind, to do not give up. Sometimes we are going through one situation, and my wife and I, we keep saying that, I should try, we need to learn this lesson quickly so we can get out of this situation. And then we keep doing the same thing. So what is the point, right? If we don't change, if we don't try different ways, sometimes we're doing one thing, think there's the right thing, and it's not changing. So let's try to do something different. May not work again, and we have to try a third thing, but we keep to continue looking for ways that we can get to the point that we are doing the right things, because giving up is not the answer, right? So in this part of this book, it also talks about suicide as a way of suffering bad, right? Suicide is not the answer. Isolating yourself from others, when we get depressed, right? Isolating ourselves from others is not the answer as well. And the right thing is to continue trying, because we have time. We do have time. We have our eternity to continue trying to get to the perfection, right? And when they talk about perseverance, they said also to us to look for those that share the same goals, right? People that have the same intentions that we do, so we can truly have the support from others, right? So the Alcoholics Anonymous group, right, is a way, right? It's people with the same problems get together and trying to help each other to overcome that difficult, right? Or I grew up in a Catholic church, and I remember that they have teenagers and couples groups that they just getting together to share their beliefs, not always sharing everything that is going on in each couple or each family, each teenager family, but they can help each other, they can support. We always have a friend that can help us, right? So we're here to help each other, right? Coming here to assess, and the moment that we start to know other people with the same beliefs, help us a lot, right? When I to be very honest with you guys, when I started in TSS, it was more because of I was new to Canada, and I could find here very good friends, and that kept me coming, right? It was not because I was a Spiritist in Brazil, because I was not. I became a Spiritist here. It was really to find people that could, in the same situation that I was, right? And that moment there was new people that was coming from Brazil like me. So, in summary, being afflicted is a blessing, right? And we should be thankful for that every single day. And we are all here together going through difficulties. So let's do our best to not judge other people's life, not look at your Facebook and see those smile and say, oh, this person has a great life. Because, yeah, they may be smiling that Facebook photo, but they may be suffering something else in their lives that we don't know, right? So we that thing, the neighbor grass is more green. It's so true, because it's not, right? So it's everybody's going through something. Every single person on earth today is suffering. Even Jesus, when he came to earth, he suffered, right? He went through his trials and said, yeah, I'll make the right decisions every single second, you know. And he was the most evolved spirit that we have ever had incarnated, but still, he went through very difficult times here, very difficult times. And if we think about his entire gospel, we can see very, very, very many different moments that he suffered, and he still forgive people. He still was still humble. He was helping, being charitable and helping others. You know, every single second he was doing that. You know, so that's what we have to keep in mind. Although we are going through our own difficulties, it's a blessing, and we're gonna survive. Let's say we're gonna survive through all of that. Okay, so that's what I have to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcio. So we do have a few minutes for questions. So any comments, questions, Marcus, anything there on the internet? No, not yet.
I just noticed something that I never noticed before. You mentioned that we're supposed to ask for faith. We're supposed to ask for courage to pass through the result. Right?
Sorry for you.
In the sorry for I don't know how to say this in English.
That's okay.
It's like a Painosum. In the Painosum, the end of the Painosum, they say, e afasta-nos de todo mal, amém. It's not afastar or take all the bad things out of us. It's us out of the bad things. What is different? So it means that you have to change in order to not go to the bad thing. Right? It's the opposite. And I never thought about that way, right? You always pray and say, oh, please take this stone out of my path, right? Actually, it's the opposite. Like, you're supposed to behave well in order to not have that stone, or you do better in order to pass better to that moment. So it's just, I never thought about that way.
Do you want to repeat, everyone?
Yeah. So the comment is about the Our Father prayer. I try to. I also have to think about how it is in English. It's Our Father pray. In the very end, there is a piece that he says in English.
Deliver us from evil.
Say it again.
Deliver us from evil.
Deliver us from the
Evil.
evil. Thank you. And how that is connected to what we're talking about. And it's not about asking us, God, to take those bad things or the evil or the stone from our paths. It's really helping us to overcome those steps, right? So yeah, that's exactly what we are talking about. That it's we must go through those things, you know. And that evil, it's something that we see as something evil, but if we see it as an opportunity for us to improve and progress towards perfections, is where we're gonna go.
That's right. Yes, Marcus has something.
There's a question here from Nafta. You can repeat the question over there, please. What is the best way to help someone who's not Spiritist, maybe even an atheist, and is going through affliction?
So the question is, how, Franato in the internet, is how can we help someone that is not Spiritist or maybe not even religious and is going through affliction? I would say the best way is being the example, right? Being the example and trying to show the good things that is happening to that person, right? Say, it all depends on how close you are, how much we can say, but there is many different, it really depends how much you are close to that person, right, to really say. But if you have the opportunity, then show a book, show the gospel, and share those information. If you're not, if it's someone in the work that you cannot do anything, you can be the example, you know, showing the other way of dealing with difficulty. I think that is the best way, right?
Yeah. I think there's a good example I use sometimes, that a lot of people, you know, have a very negative idea about stress. You know, when we say about the word stress, everyone's like, I don't want to be stressed, right? It's like it's horrible. But stress, there's a reason for it in psychology. Like if you're not stressed, you never change. Like a stress is a moment that you can take that whole energy and that's telling you that something's gotta change. That's what stress is doing to you. Your body's telling you, your spirit's telling you, you as a spirit is showing through your body saying, listen, wait a minute, this is unbearable. Something has to change. And then you make a change, right? When the stress overwhelms your ability to respond to things, then it's a pathological. So in other words, like you're in a state of stress that's really like affecting your position to make a decision. And likely because you haven't made that decision for a long time. So you missed the opportunity of changing. So here is exactly the same thing. So what I would, sometimes I give example to someone who has no religious background at all, like atheist or anything or whatever it is. I say, listen, can you ever imagine, for example, how we would survive without being scared? How will we survive? We'll all die. If you're not scared of falling through a cliff, like humanity will have disappeared from Earth a long time ago. All of us will wander through cliffs and die, right? What about stress? You know, how can we survive without stress? Just think about your normal routine in life and take away all the stress. You just breeze through and the world's going to collapse around you and you're still like, oh, you know, everything's okay. But you're not doing anything. You're just going to live on that same bubble of not reality for a long time. So give examples of like that. They'll realize that afflictions, stress, difficulties, fear, anxiety, all those feelings, when they're not pathological, they're actually trying to tell you something. So the affliction here is exactly the same thing, right? So if you're going through a moment where it's tough, it's the universe is telling you, if you're not religious in any way, so the universe is telling you that something's got to change, right? So that's a good example.
And there was two. While Mark was saying that, I remember that there's a TED talk about that, and there's so many ways. When I said that it not depend how close you are to the person, you know, I also, it was hard, but I got the lessons that it's okay for us to share our religious point of view. So it's okay to go and say, you know, in Spiritism we learned this, you know, and I was always afraid to mention something about my religion at work, and I got an point that, you know, I'm openly talking about it. You know, the company also make it very easy for us in reality, but you know, we should be ashamed of saying things about our religions. But if you don't feel comfortable for that, like Mark was saying, stress, there is a TED talk about it. You have so many scientific talks, and you know, that people can relate, that many times say exactly what we are saying in the Spiritism, with different words in a different way, right? So if it's a way of sharing that information, go and share that with the person, right? You don't need to always talk about Spiritism if you don't feel like, but at the same time, don't feel ashamed to go and talk about Spiritism.
Agreed. Yes.
I'm not sure if I can say that in English.
Yes.
You made me think about something. And if anxiety and stress is pathological, how can we do it?
Yeah. So that's a different story. So
Maybe you want to repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question is, like, I know all the overall feelings of the spirit are needed at our stage of evolution, but they can become pathological, right? Well, in other words, when anxiety, stress, anything like that impairs your capability of living a normal life and making decisions, then obviously that's not a healthy thing anymore. That's unhealthy, right? It's quite obvious, right? And what to do with that, right? So that's a completely different story, right? Because when those feelings overwhelm your ability to deal with reality in general, then you need help, right? So because now let's give an example. So if the stress is coming so you can make a decision and change something, if the stress is so unbearable that now you cannot make decisions anymore, then it defeats the purpose. right? So you're stuck in a cycle that, well, you're stressed, so the level of stress is so high that you can't make the decision that you need to do to get out of the stressful situation, right? So that's a moment where you need help. The help can be coming in many, many different ways. It could be through religious support, to peer support, through medical support, medication support. Like there's really like there's life change methods that you can implement, positive thinking. There's a lot of things. It's just in general, when you find yourself in that situation, then obviously we need help, right? And then now where you get help, it really depends in each case. Like it's more like a case by case situation, right? But
because we cannot expect that religions in general, spiritism will bring all the answers all the time. You know, God gave us medicine, science to help us there as well. So if you get a point that you know only these books not helping, go and look for help, for
sure.
medical help, right?
Sometimes we need it.
It's needed, and it's fine. It's okay. It's expected. You know, God
And it's
created
not a problem.
medicine.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. Yeah, God created medicine for all of us.
Yeah.
You know, if you are not supposed to have that help, we would have never created that, right?
All right. Thank you very much, Marcio.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to prepare ourselves for passes now. So I would like, yes, I'll get the kids. Yeah, so I'll do, yes, I'll get the kids. And I would like to thank everyone online that's been following us. It was great to have you one more time. Thank you all for your comments and participation. I'll see you guys during the studies or next weekend. Thank you. And